Welcome back to the Explainer. Okay, today we are on a mission. We're going to take that looming sense of IB exam panic you might be feeling, and we're going to transform it into a highly focused mark scoring system. Now, if you're prepping for the International Baccalaureate exams right now, you really need to hear this. We're going to give you some tough love today, but honestly, it's the exact kind of tough love that actually guarantees you're ready. We're stripping away the fluff, we're looking directly at the data and strategies from top IB resources, and we're building you a completely foolproof study approach. Let's get into it.
So, be honest for a second. Have you stared at your IB syllabus recently and thought to yourself, I have time? Look, if you have, you're in very good company. But here's the stark reality we're seeing across all the source material. Most IB students don't actually run out of effort. They just quietly run out of runway. The absolute biggest mistakes made during exam season, they aren't these dramatic, massive explosions. They're just quiet daily habits that feel entirely reasonable in the moment. Which brings us to Section 1, the illusion of readiness, and those quiet mistakes. You see, there's this really dangerous concept called quiet mistakes. These are study habits that feel super productive, like perfectly color-coding your notes or watching just one more explanation video, but in reality, they're completely destroying your exam readiness because they're keeping you entirely safe from actually making errors. So let's look at this diagnostic checklist directly from our sources. I want you to mentally check off any of these that apply to you. Are you spending way more time organizing your revision than doing actual timed practice? Maybe avoiding the topics that cost you marks? Are you relying on motivation instead of a daily system? Or maybe you just completely lack a feedback loop, like a mistakes list. Here's the deal. If you are answering yes to any of these, you are quietly leaking marks every single day. And honestly, this distinction right here illustrates exactly why those marks are leaking. In the IB program, familiarity is incredibly seductive, right? You read your notes and think, yep, totally know this. But recognition is not recall. When you actually sit down in that exam hall, the examiner doesn't ask if the page looks familiar. No way. They demand recall. They are asking you to produce structure, precise vocabulary, and specific methods under intense time pressure. So the absolutely crucial point here is that we have to shift our revision from input to output. And we do this through active recall and spaced repetition. Instead of passive reading, you've got to stimulate your memory by actually testing yourself. And you can't just do it once, you have to space it out. 1 day, 3 days, then a week later. The data on this is crystal clear. Replacing 1 hour of comfortable rereading with just 25 minutes of attempting actual questions completely changes the game. Let's move on to Section 2, comfort zone versus score zone, and fixing those weaknesses. Now, a huge part of exam prep failure really just comes down to emotional avoidance. We naturally want to hide in the topics we already know, because, it feels good. But feeling good does not equal scoring well. The comfort zone is a total trap. You start with a topic you enjoy, you do a few easy questions, you feel reassured, and you repeat. It's a warm, fuzzy, and completely useless feeling. To get to the score zone, you gotta do the uncomfortable work. You have to pinpoint your top 3 mark loss areas, not your favorites, your weak spots. Do targeted drills until the mistakes actually stop, and then come back 48 hours later to prove the fix actually held. And to actually live in that score zone, you need a system. Enter the mistakes log. This is literally the ultimate tool. You track the topic, exactly what you did wrong, what the mark scheme actually wanted, the trigger, like maybe you were fatigued or panicking over time, and then you make a strict rule for next time. In the IB, mistakes repeat for emotional reasons just as much as academic ones. So this log instantly takes that emotional exam panic and turns it into hard, actionable data. All right, Section 3, mastering output over input and creating usable plans. So there's a very specific form of procrastination that loves to disguise itself as ambition, and that is making the perfect color-coded study plan. But here's a harsh truth directly from our sources. 15 minutes. If your meticulously crafted IB study plan takes longer than 15 minutes to maintain each week, it is simply not going to survive exam season. A usable plan is boring. It has slack built in. It assumes you're going to have bad days. Just prioritize a short, daily, non-negotiable block of flashcards and questions, and leave the complex spreadsheets behind. Moving right along to Section 4, the mark scheme translation layer, and actually earning those points. There's this really critical gap between just knowing the syllabus content and actually earning the points. You can know the content perfectly, back to front, and still miss the marks, because examiners are looking to reward very specific behaviors.
They want to see correct use of command terms. Like, do you actually know the difference between evaluate and compare? They want to see your method, not just a final answer. And you bridge this gap by practicing the smallest unit possible, maybe just one paragraph or one calculation, comparing it directly against the mark scheme and then rewriting it. Now, I know rewriting an answer you literally just finished is super uncomfortable, but that discomfort, that is the exact place where your grades actually improve.
Let's look at Section 5, Training for Time Pressure, and the Mock Exam Protocol.
It's crazy how many students revise casually without ever actually practicing the feeling of being timed. Time pressure isn't some surprise on test day. It's a deliberate, calculated part of the test design. You literally have to train the feeling of the ticking clock so your brain doesn't treat exam day like an emergency. So follow this mock exam protocol. Step 1, start small. Do 20-minute timed question sets. Step 2, escalate to full timed sections. Step 3, sit for full mock exams under realistic, quiet conditions. And Step 4, honestly the most important one, execute an immediate post-mock analysis.
Because frankly, completing a mock or a predicted exam without analyzing it afterward is just a massive waste of your valuable study time. You really have to ask yourself the hard questions during your analysis. Which specific questions ate your time? Where exactly did you hesitate? Which topics triggered slow thinking? Or, hey, were you writing way too much for a low-mark question? This post-mock analysis literally becomes your new hyper-targeted study plan. Okay, final stretch. Section 6, your final survival system for those crucial last weeks. So let's build a completely foolproof framework for those final weeks of IB prep. First up, we need to talk about your energy budget. The IB rarely crushes students with one giant, spectacular failure. Instead, it crushes them when the small tasks, like your internal assessments, your extended essay, your theory of knowledge, are left alone to quietly explode all in the exact same week. You only have 100% energy. You absolutely must set a weekly maintenance block to contain these smaller tasks early. Break them down into tiny little outputs so they don't consume the vital energy that's meant for your high-level subjects. Next up, you need to intentionally add friction. Look, studying entirely alone in a super quiet room might feel efficient, but it almost always leads to silent avoidance. If your revision never faces any friction, your knowledge is fragile. To fix this, you've got to teach your concept out loud in 2 minutes. Do a past paper question with a friend and actually argue about the mark scheme. Hop on an AI chat and ask it to challenge your reasoning. The goal of studying isn't just to feel smart sitting in your bedroom. The goal is to become completely exam-proof. But hey, what if you're already behind? What if too late is feeling a bit too close for comfort? Listen to me. Do not negotiate with guilt. Guilt is just a waste of time. Instead, build momentum using this highly actionable 7-day recovery plan. Days 1 and 2, tackle your weak topics with timed sets and start that mistakes log. Days 3 and 4, reattempt those same areas and then add in a second weak topic. Day 5, mix them all up to force your brain to switch gears quickly. Day 6, take a mini mock exam and analyze it deeply. And Day 7, rest. Just do some really light retrieval practice. Remember, the IB doesn't require perfection. It strictly requires consistency. I want to leave you with this really powerful thought from our sources. You don't need a brand new personality. You need a small system that runs even when you're tired. So my final question to you is this. Are you ready to finally drop the illusion of competence, step into the score zone, and build the system that actually guarantees you're ready for exam day? Get to work, and we'll catch you in the next explainer.